Hi, this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with Rob Daviau, designer and now publisher, owner of IronWall Games.
Yeah, business owner, CEO.
Yes.
Also the guy who gets all the printer ink. My accounting, bookkeeping.
That's right. Covering everything.
Everything. Small business owner.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the small talk at the water cooler is just like talking to yourself.
It's kind of lonely, yeah. I almost got a dog, but...
So you left Hasbro a couple of years ago. So 2012.
Yep.
And now you're on your own.
Yes.
What is that like? I mean, so what was the initial plan when you left, and has that worked out?
The initial plan was to make lots of awesome games.
Okay.
Sell them, gain royalties, work a little less hard, retire.
Okay.
That's still the plan.
That's still the plan.
The royalty part has not started yet because it's been 2 years. We were like, what's happening? What's happening is I still have a day job, which is consulting back to Hasbro and other companies for day-to-day bills, which means my game design for myself is in the time when I'm not doing billable work. Underestimated how much that would, time that would take to just pay my bills. So I haven't quite quit my day job, if that makes sense.
So it's a small advice for people on there, but it's terms. I mean, you've got the background, you got the experience for all this, so you know what you're doing. Now you've got one project, Funemployed. You're doing a new edition.
Funemployed
for that.
is the first game that my company's publishing, and it's not even my design. It's a party game. I saw it a couple years ago. Really liked it. Thought it was great. Like the designers at Gen.CON learned the rights were available, and I thought this is a really good way to jump into the publishing game. So we have a Kickstarter now going through the middle of December. It's going well. A little bit of a new experience to do Kickstarter, but it's just a fun party game. So I got doing some party games, and then on the flip side, I'm doing SeaFall, which is not a party game.
Not a party game, right? So SeaFall was announced, sort of built on a legacy engine.
Yes.
So of course you're known for Risk Legacy.
Yes.
There's Pandemic Legacy you're working on with Matt Leacock.
Yep.
You talked a little bit about it at Gen.CON. We had a video on that.
Yep.
So what's it like doing SeaFall compared to doing Risk Legacy?
That's probably the one that I underestimated the most on how big and ambitious it was going to be. I left Hasbro and I thought, oh, I can do anything now. I can make it as big as I want. And then I did. And then it was unplayable, right? And then I needed help. Right, I'm talking to people and playtesting it and collapsing it down, and I think it's really close. I have all the right pieces there, but the games, being a legacy game, you play game 1 and then it builds on and builds on, and it's a campaign. And so game 1 and 2 were working really well. You get to game 9, it was like 6-hour game. Right, and I don't love a 6-hour game, and I certainly don't expect anyone to play a campaign of 6-hour games. So it's this weird thing being, designing a legacy game where I'm like, okay, the last third of this isn't working. What do I have to switch in game 1? To fix that without making game 1 really boring, where people go, there's not enough here, and they don't even play game 2. So I have to make a really good game 1 that builds in the right way without, in this case, getting long or getting complicated. Hey man, how are you?
All right. So as you're saying, you want to tease people,
yes,
in a sense, to enjoy that first experience, and then what's next.
Yeah, like any game, the first time you play it, you learn the rules. Now, the nice thing about Risk Legacy is people pretty much knew how to play Risk. So you could start Risk Legacy and say, hey, it's Risk, but you're going to do these 3 things, and you understood the context of what that meant. Oh, I can add a permanent bonus to Australia for me. If I get that. Like, where in SeaFall, when you're making permanent changes, you're just spending a game or two figuring out how the engine works, and what you don't want to do is then go, well, I wouldn't have done that if I really knew how to play the game. So it's making sure that the first games you don't make any real permanent mistakes or things you regret. I don't mind in a legacy game if you make a permanent mistake that you regret, but you should do it because you know how the game is played, and later on you say that was a dumb decision, not I didn't understand how the game was played.
Right.
So I was trying to juggle all these things to make the first couple of games a learning game, and then kind of grow into a more adventurous, robust engine without making the first part too simple or the last part too lengthy.
Okay. Ambitious.
It's why I'm still at it after 2 years.
Right. So it's still in development, still hard at work here. And you're doing this in cooperation with Plaid Hat, or how is that?
Like it's a joint publishing effort. When I was leaving Hasbro, I'd known Colby. He had worked on HeroScape stuff when I was at Hasbro. And I said, I'm doing my own company. I'm going to be very busy. I don't want to have a booth across from you at Gen.CON. because we're friends. And I said, but if I do a game that's going to take this long and I'm just getting a regular royalty, it's not going to be worth my time. So we worked out a deal where we're kind of co-publishing it, like where it's, it's without getting into contract details, which are both boring and inappropriate. Like co-publishing is probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
So it's going to be under his label, but my IronWall will be on there, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff to make it work.
Should we ask about? I mean, it's always hard when people ask immediately, well, when's it going to be out? And of course, it's not done. So it's not even appropriate to even sort of go down that path.
As soon as humanly possible, right? I made a very rookie mistake being a new business person. I was like a year into design, and I thought it was really close to done. It was going into play testing, and I'm like, I've done this for 14 years. It's going to be fine. And I announced it, did a lot of press.
Right.
And then immediately had to be like, sorry guys, sorry, I didn't really, whoops, I didn't mean it. So I'm really avoiding committing to any date till it's almost on the boat from this point, just because I really should have been announcing it maybe now, maybe, right? And so what I don't want is this game to be the vaporware game of lost promises,
Okay.
It won't be next week. But it won't be 20.
Depending on when you watch this video.
It won't be 2014. Okay. All right. But after that, we've got agendas and schedules, and we're just hoping to get to meet them. But
now, I don't know if we want to talk about it a little. I mean, so I played a game.
Yeah.
And it's not in the final state. There's all sorts of things, and you were talking about changes you made that morning, and this. I mean, it's interesting. Just that design process is very fluid because you have to. I don't know. You're of course trying to satisfy your personal goals along with this nebulous audience of whatever they want.
Well, it's been amazing to be here at this convention because you get really smart game players who will sit down and say very smart things. Now, you can't use all of them.
I hope I was one of them. Anyway.
And so you have to sit down and like kind of take it all in, and then someone will say something, you're like, right, that's it. But I'm thinking of, well, how does that play out in this game and that game, and you don't know about this, you know about that. And so I'm trying to implement something, and so every group has played a slightly different version. In order to take care of this length problem, I'm trying to collapse the number of turns you take to make it work, but I'll get to a point where you're like, you don't have enough turns to have a satisfying game. So every group is getting a slight variation on the number of turns and what you can do on a turn, which seems weird at this stage, but it's really just chopping up the same ingredients a slightly different way.
Right. Adjusting the dials. There's so many dials.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't even know the dials that are in there.
No, I only know the visible dials that I saw here, but I mean, there's so many little things, and of course, everything that comes out of that, there was definitely a lot of, for us, I think, processing time, just because you're trying to imagine how this world all fits together and the possibilities for what you can do in it. And it's hard until you actually play like through a year or so. Not an actual year. It's actually a game year.
Game years long. No, it's interesting because I wanted to make a very robust game engine where one player can be like, I'm going to be a merchant prince, and another player could say, I'm going to be a pirate king, and another person can say, I'm going to be an explorer. And the game supports all of these and gives them a valid chance to win. Why do something small?
That's right.
Right, and so it's like getting all of the different pieces to be viable and make sure there isn't a broken strategy, and making sure there's enough interaction and not enough, not too much downtime. And the biggest downtime in the game, I've tried to make the most exciting, which is exploring. Because what happens when you explore usually captures other people's interest. So even though you
care about what happens,
care what's happened, or you're interested to see the results. So if you're exploring, it's a little bit of a longer process. There isn't a quick turn like I'm buying 2 goods, and okay, now your turn. But hopefully I'm interested, even though I'm waiting to see what happens to you on your exploration mission. So it's balancing all of that, so even if you're waiting, you're engaged.
So what's sort of the different approach for this? So you play, and based on the results of that game, certain things are going to happen. For everyone in the game, winner or loser. How does that different? So there's considerations for that based on the long term and how the game is changing versus something where the game doesn't change. we're not going to play year one again. When we do this. So
1501, 1502, and 1503 are history books now.
So I don't know if that's a different thought for you in terms of the designer of, okay, well, they're going to play this game the first time, and then they're going to play it again, and it's the same game, but of course they've now played it, they now learn it.
Yeah.
It's going to be different.
It's not the same game, because part of what you do is you explore. So when you start game two,
but if you're doing like not a legacy game, so comparing that. You're publishing one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But I mean, games always change when you play them, because now you play them and I know what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah,
and I know what someone else might do, and I do this. But the legacy one, it's that on top of the world changing. Is there, I don't know if there's a different thought process going on here. There's a long lead-in question, so I hope there is.
Yeah, there is a different thought process, and I'm working on other games. I'm working on a game for IDW Comics based on V-Wars, which is a comic book and book series based on Vampire Riders, where you just play once, and there's no legacy. Of course, that's too simple. Why do that? So I made it a game that starts as a co-op and then gets a possible hidden traitor and then becomes asymmetric. And then at the end, honestly, everyone could be playing for the vampire, so it becomes a co-op again, where you're working with the game instead of against it, and it has to work at every step along the way. I played that. That worked pretty well today.
Okay.
Again, smart people. Like, we got one turn in, and someone across from me goes, he was very honest. He goes, I'm not really sure what to do here, because I don't, like we were talking about, emotionally wasn't engaged. And we made one quick fix, and bang, game's 10 times better.
Okay.
So, which I wouldn't have gotten without being around smart gamers.
All right. So that's what you want to do as a designer as well. Well, I mean, but again, we talked about this a little bit, that even, I don't want to say not smart gamers, but the gamers come with all sorts of backgrounds and experience level, and you have to make it for, I mean, the beginning gamer is not necessarily going to find SeaFall and be like, oh, hey, I'm going to get this giant game.
No, don't give this to like your non-gamer friends. Well, actually, you can buy it, thank you very much, but I would, keep it for yourself.
Right. But I mean, you still want to have that experience crossing all those gamers. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're designing it for this particular audience.
You have to design for an audience, right? The people who are going to play another Axis and Allies extension are not the people who probably are saying, well, it's either going to be that or Agricola, right? Like, we already have the traditional European-American divide, which, is largely a construct, but there are abstract games, short games, long games.
Party games.
I particularly don't play games with simultaneous turns. Where everyone's doing everything at the same time. I mean, I don't mind a Seven Wonders where you're sort of doing the same actions, but I'd like we all play frantically. I just personally don't like them.
The real-time.
Like the real-time games. I also panic in any game where there's bidding or auctions, because I do so badly that I get mad at myself. So I avoid them, not because they're bad games, but because I play so awfully that I don't like them. So no game can fit everyone. So SeaFall is going to try to fit as broad an audience as possible, but when I'm designing and I have a decision, I try to think of who I think the audience is and what's best for them.
And it's weird, because it seems like it's a bit of a role-playing. There's a little feel of that. Yeah. So that crosses, that's the big Venn diagram there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got a... Risk Legacy gave you the tools to kind of write your own story. Like, as things came out, they were deliberately cartoony, right? Like sort of stereotypes, so that the players could decide what to do with that. In this one, I'm actually adding more of my storytelling to it, almost like a role-playing adventure in board game form. Is it a Euro? What do you know? You played it. Is it American? Is it a Euro with dice pools? Like what?
Yeah, it's kind of, yes. Yes, it's kind of all that kind of mixed together. So, I don't know. It's, yeah.
Well, what I tried to do, there's 4 main guilds in the game. The builders and the traders are all Euro. There's no luck. You can actually optimize your engine and plan out all your turns. The military and the explorer is all American with dice pools and risk and reward and uncertainty. So you as a player can do a little bit of both, or you can decide, I like dice and adventure. You can be like, I don't like that unpredictability. I'm going to focus more on like creating a building trading engine. It's ambitious.
And at the same time, I mean, one difference sort of feels from Risk Legacy is you're only getting a little bit of the world. and then more of it kind of opens up as
that's a big
as opposed to Risk. I mean, you are in the world. That's everything.
With Risk,
there.
here's the map. What are you going to do to like change it? But you see the whole world, and this is, and you didn't have the whole board printed out yesterday, but it's basically a large open ocean with nothing on it, and you have to go find what's out there. What I learned from Risk Legacy is people really like opening packets and getting surprises, which is great. But I really
that's what the Cards Against Humanity holiday bullshit's all about. Is like getting stuff in the mail, and I don't know what this is.
I don't know. Yeah, and then so I've tried to put, not as a gimmick, but as a design element, more of that in SeaFall. Like, as you know, when you start out, there's islands with spaces that you don't know what's there. So there are, I don't know, dozens and dozens, maybe 80, maybe 100 in the whole game that you can find, and every one of those is almost in a way like a little thing that you can open and see what's there. And I tried to make that process as interesting as possible. When you first played the game, you'd be like, "What's there?" And be like, "Oh, it's a place that makes iron." Okay. And now I've turned that into a little adventure, so that it's hopefully entertaining for people, and they don't just. I mean, hopefully they don't just go blah 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 iron, which they can, but hopefully they don't want to.
Right. But again, it's different, and it's it's different for each person, but it's also different as you explore each little area.
Yeah, and then and everyone's world will be different. Where the islands are, where things appear on the islands will be in different places. Like your group had an island that was rapidly becoming an island with all one good, right? Yeah, it was like the opium den, and it was basically going to be a place in later games where that would make a difference, as opposed to being a little bit of everything. Okay.
So there's a little overview of what you're doing here.
A little rules mechanic-y there.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else to talk about? I didn't ask about anything.
No, I'll just say it again. First-time publisher. Please check out the Funemployed Kickstarter.
That's right.
I have to do that. It's a good game. It's a funny game. You get to basically talk for a minute and be funny, which is good. Which is
And be patient with SeaFall, because it'll get here. Well, ideally, of course, it's always the thing. I don't know if you know the Steve Jackson phrase.
No.
If it's late, it's only late temporarily. But if it sucks forever. So
I like that phrase. Yes. I don't want to spend. I'd rather spend 2.5 years for a great game than 2.25 years for a game that I just wasted 2.25 years of my life. I lost money on it and spent thousands of hours.
Yes.
So.
All right. Okay. Well, good luck.
Okay. Thank you. Daviau's okay.
But Daviau's
preferred, although my brother says it the other way. So. Okay. Huge rift.
Every Thanksgiving, throwing rolls at each other. What are you doing here? All right. Hi, this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with Rob Daviau.